Show me the crypto. Show me the crypto. Show me the crypto.
In a world on the brink of disruption, two men will bring you clarity by interviewing some of the most intelligent and influential names in the blockchain world. Welcome to Show Me the Crypto with your hosts, Wade Patterson and Ulf Lonergan.
Well, hi there and welcome to Show Me the Crypto. My name is Wade Patterson.
And I'm Ulf Lonergan.
We're a couple of friends from Canada who love learning about cryptocurrencies and blockchain technology, and we're happy you're along for the ride. Whether you're a crypto virgin or you know your way around the block, we hope our interviews with some of the most intelligent and influential people in the blockchain space help deliver you with value. And on this episode, we're joined by Prerna Gupta, founder and CEO of Mysterious, which is a video NFT platform with a mission of helping the world's best experimental audio and visual artists realize the full value of their art. Throughout her career over the past 2 decades, Prerna has built consumer apps in Web 1, Web 2, and now Web 3 that have collectively reached more than 1 billion people. Fast Company named Prerna one of the most influential women in tech, and her writing has been featured in the New York Times, Vogue, and TechCrunch. Prerna, welcome to Show Me the Crypto.
Thank you so much.
We're really excited about this conversation, and where I want to start is with your upbringing and music. So my understanding is that you are a singer, you found several apps that are related to music, and now you're focused on Mysterious. So what kind of impact did music have on you growing up?
Music has been a huge part of my life for as long as I can remember. I grew up, so I'm the daughter of immigrants from India. I grew up in a small town in Oklahoma. So it was a really interesting cultural mix as I was growing up. And I was getting, music kind of exposure to different musical cultures from the beginning. So a lot of music was playing in the house. Indian music was playing in the house as I was growing up. And growing up in the Bible Belt, I used to go to church a lot with my friends. I'm not Christian. My parents are Hindu, but they were happy for me to get exposed to different cultures. And so I used to, go to church and sing at church. And so it was this really interesting mix of a lot of different kind of music. And I just always loved to sing. And so my mom kind of saw that and just helped put me in, give me opportunities to do that. And so I grew up performing a lot, singing on stage, and just continued that throughout my life. At some point, I had a dream of becoming a professional singer, but I think the nerd in me kind of won out, and I ended up going to college. I was at Stanford and studied economics and took computer science classes and kind of took that path instead. But I also, soon after Stanford, I met the man that I would eventually marry and co-found all of my companies with, Parag, who is also a professional musician, also had a dream of being a musician, and ended up spending most of his time instead getting a PhD at Stanford. But for both of us, I think there was kind of like this primary and secondary. And the primary is that we're nerds and we're intellectuals and we love to build technology. And the secondary was music. And so I think both of us meeting, deciding to do startups together, it was just this perfect partnership where we ended up creating a lot of products that help bring music into people's lives.
That's awesome. And you touched on some of the sort of more career aspects of that, the history there, but maybe more in depth. Could you go through your career as a serial entrepreneur and what brought you to app development and the idea of creating apps as your businesses?
Yeah. So I have been an entrepreneur my entire career. I graduated from Stanford in 2004, and I went through 2 jobs in the first 6 months. I was a management consultant initially, and then I quit that, and I was a VC for a few months, and then quit that and just kind of dove in and started doing startups. It was just clear to me that that was what I wanted to do, and there was really no better way to learn than just doing it. And I was with Prerna, and I were together at that point, and he was about to start a job as a professor at Georgia Tech in the music technology department. And he decided to pause on that. He sort of told him, I'm going to go do a startup with my girlfriend instead. And so he put a pause on that, and we dove in and did our first startup. That startup failed eventually, but that was kind of the beginning of everything. And in the very early days of the App Store, 2008, 2009, he and I came up with an idea to create music apps that help people make music on their phones. And that was sort of the, it's kind of been like no looking back ever since then. And it's been a really, really amazing trajectory. But our mission from the beginning has been to use technology to impact culture. As humans, we always have used, from the very beginning, we've used technology to make art. If you look back they found from 30,000 years ago fossils of people using bones and things like that to make flutes. And so it's something that, as we have grown as a species and learned to shape our environment, a big part of what we've done with that is art and culture. And so that's kind of our life mission. And those are the opportunities that we pursued from the beginning.
One of the things that I came across in the research for this episode, you talked about in a couple other conversations, was that you would be in meetings with your husband, and whether it was with VCs, possible investors, and you would be delivering like 80, 90% of this presentation, and then they would listen and then ask questions, but direct them at your husband instead of you. The question I want to ask is with Web3, is that something from your experience that is getting better, or is that still a problem?
Well, it's a great question. I think I would say it's yes and no. So the beginning of Web3, the very beginning, in many ways, has been very similar to the very beginning of Web 1 and Web 2, which is that, there's a certain type of person that is leading everything. And, it tends to be white males. And there's a monoculture that develops at the beginning of each of these waves. And I've experienced it in Web 1, in Web 2, and the very beginning of Web 3. And it's really difficult. It has historically been so difficult to break out if you are different, if you don't kind of fit that mold. But there's something really amazing about Web3 that has happened that's different for the first two waves, which is that there's this amazing energy pouring in from women and non-binary people and people of color that we're all jumping in at the same time. And there's also, I think, the ethos of DAO. It's this idea of decentralized autonomous organizations that come together and help basically empower people that believe in a certain thing, to educate them. And that's been really important to me. It's been really exciting to me. It's been really important to me. I joined a DAO called BFF in the early days as a founding member. And the mission of BFF is to educate women and non-binary people and help take that initial seed of energy that's coming in and blow it out, basically, so that Web3 is different, so that it's not just the same type of person that's building from the beginning, and that we are all contributing and we're all building. And that's so important because it's going to impact the kinds of products that are made and the way this new world gets shaped. So it's awesome, and it's something that's really different from how it's been before.
Awesome. I love hearing that. Wade and I have had the opportunity to interview a number of women on our podcast, and we've had similar questions, and I think there's definitely a connecting thread to what you've said and what we've heard, and obviously that's positive to hear, and that's great to see that there's some good change moving forward, and that's being reflected in Web3 today.
Yeah.
So I understand that you bought Bitcoin way back in 2011 and even lost a lot of that Bitcoin going through the Mt. Gox fiasco. Can you explain a bit of that story and maybe just the story overall of how you got introduced to crypto, and maybe even catching up to today, you know, NFTs and how this led to Mysterious?
Yeah, absolutely. Basically, you know, so my husband and I read about Bitcoin in the New Yorker, in an article. There was an article in the New Yorker about Bitcoin in, I think it was either 2010 or early, I think 2011. And it was just really fascinating to us. You know, it seemed so like this really kind of crazy and sort of anarchic new technology. And, you know, we're not like, I wouldn't characterize myself as like, I'm not a crypto bro, you know, I'm whatever. Everyone has different political beliefs. I'm not extreme in my political beliefs. I do believe that there should be a government, but there was something exciting about this idea of this new decentralized technology that's going to change potentially everything, but also change the way we buy things on the internet and allow us to buy things in a way that is not controllable, you know, by other entities. And so we figured out how to get Bitcoin, and we started buying and investing in Bitcoin. And at the time, Mt. Gox was, you know, kind of the exchange, and we didn't do the thing that we should have done, which is, you know, transfer it off of, off of the cloud and have it in a physical thing. We kept saying like, really should do that, you know, and it was just like, eh. And a few years later, Mt. Gox blew up and people lost a lot more money than we lost. But, you know, we lost several $1 million worth of Bitcoin in that. Although I read recently that maybe some people might be getting it back. So some portion of it back, which will be cool. But yeah, it was, you know, it was an interesting time to be in it so early. It was so different because there were no apps back then. There was no Ethereum. It was just Bitcoin. And it was really about Silk Road and, you know, things, you know, some crazy things, but also some cool things that you could buy on Silk Road, which was interesting to experience and be a part of. And I think the biggest thing though is like, it's so interesting how there was that boom and bust cycle. Like those boom and bust cycles have just been happening from the beginning. And so for us as early investors, we made some money, we lost money. And then, you know, there's the crypto winter and you're just like, oh my gosh, I was such an idiot. What was I doing? And then it starts to pick up again and then you get back in. Yeah. And you buy some more and then you make money and then it crashes again. And you're like, I was such an idiot. What was I doing? So I feel like we've gone through it like this, you know? Yeah. And each time we put in more. So we've lost money again. But it's been so exciting to see more than anything how the technology has developed and how it started with just this idea, this really outlandish idea. And it was useful from the beginning, no matter what, you know, people have different beliefs about Silk Road and whether it's good or bad, but you know, it was cool to participate in that. And then just to see Ethereum come up and now just so much technology and so much energy from so many smart people. And it's still at the same time just feels like the very beginning.
Mm-hmm. Earlier in the conversation, you talked about the want to impact culture through technology and that type of thing. And so NFTs coming out, I mean, that's the perfect description of what that is. It's culture coming into the space. So was that something you identified right away? Like when did NFTs kind of get on your radar and when did it click of, okay, this actually makes sense?
Yeah. So NFTs were the thing that got us excited about building in this space for sure. And it's exactly because of that, because that's our thing. That's what we do. It's about art and it's about culture. And so as long as it was just DeFi, it was like more like, okay, this is cool. I can use Bitcoin to like whatever, get on Silk Road and maybe make some money. But it just wasn't interesting as founders. But when NFTs came up, it started to get interesting, but our last company, it's actually the same company, but the product we've been building is a storytelling app called Hooked. And so we were deep in Hooked, even when the first NFTs came up. And so we weren't thinking about it from as creators or from the perspective of founders. And it really wasn't until last year when art NFTs really started to take off that something clicked. It was like that light bulb moment where we were like, we need to get out of Web 2 and just dive into this, because this is it. Like, this is our opportunity to have an impact now. And for us, we've been building since the early days of the App Store, and there's just those moments in time where everything's new, and then there's just the wild, wild west. There's this crazy new area where people are pouring, where kind of the early pioneers are pouring their energy, that it is such an exciting time to build. That is my favorite time to be a founder, my favorite time to build. And it became clear to us that it doesn't matter. Just leave it behind. Like, let's just go. It's time to go, just go ride the horses and go out west.
That's awesome. Wade and we had a guest on basically introducing us to NFTs. I mean, we had heard about it, but we wanted to learn ourselves as we, share our episode to educate audiences as well. And it's funny because the timing you talk about, I think a lot of people were maybe in a similar space where they'd heard about NFTs, but just like you were busy heads down with your current project, everybody is busy with a lot of things, and it's hard to jump on every new catchphrase you hear. But NFTs really blew up last year, and I think they got a lot of the world's attention. And now a lot of creators and founders like yourselves getting into the space, and that's awesome. That's what's going to make it grow. So I'm curious for someone, coming in now, immersed in the space, but who's also built businesses and technologies across Web 1, Web 2, and Web 3 now. What are the similarities between maybe the older different technologies with Web 2 and even as far back as Web 1? And what are some of the differences you're dealing with today?
Yeah, it's a really great question, because I think a lot of when everyone's talking about Web 3 and it's going to reinvent the internet and everything's going to change. And so it's tempting to just pretend that everything's different, but everything we're building is built on, first and foremost, the technologies that came out of Web 1 and Web 2. We are building websites and mobile apps. So we're working with Mysterious on a mobile app that we're launching in September. And before that, the NFT platform we launched is a website. And that's Web 1 stuff. And so it is different. The blockchain is different. The way that you interact, there's a whole nother layer, which is different, of course, but it is important to acknowledge that our ability to do what we're doing today is because of all of the innovations that have happened in the past 2 decades. And and in a lot of ways, I've been building since the early days, almost 20 years now. And what I've seen is how much easier it's become to jump in and to build a product quickly and to learn new things. When we started, it was so slow. Setting up a server was so difficult. Learning a new technology was crazy hard because there was just way less information out there. Now we've jumped into this new space. We didn't know anything about developing blockchain stuff, and we've been able to learn, and our engineers have been able to pick it up. We didn't hire blockchain engineers. Our iOS developer became a blockchain engineer over the past few months. And it's really incredible how quickly you can just set up new technologies and learn new technologies. So I think, to me, that's actually the biggest difference with Web3 and one of the reasons why it's taking off so quickly, one of the reasons why there is an opportunity for diverse people, diverse builders to come in, because there's less of an advantage for entrenched groups, because you can be new to it and just come in and read and watch tutorials and listen to podcasts like this one and learn stuff. And it's amazing. So I actually think that's the biggest difference, is just how easy it is to learn. Blockchain development, of course, is difficult. And it's also difficult because in a lot of ways, because it's new and a lot of the infrastructure is being built, and there's new infrastructure coming up constantly that you have to sort of integrate, and culture is changing so quickly, so you have to sort of stay on top of that. But it's very much, we are standing on the shoulders of giants that came before us.
Yeah, it's must be a constant catch-up game. We're often talking with guests how, using the analogy that a year in crypto or in Web3 or blockchain is like 10 years in any other industry or part of the world. So it's like this, you're always constantly catching up. And to the point about that being a challenge, are there specific issues you've already run into where you're working on something and perhaps, new updates come out or changes in how things are being worked on, and now you're almost out of date and you have to, apply new skills or new learnings to get things back on track?
Yes. I mean, first, so when we first came up with the idea for Mysterious, it was in fall of last year. And at that time, it was, you had to build on Ethereum, like mainnet. It needed to be L1. And no one's going to buy an NFT if it's not on Ethereum. Like, that was kind of what everyone was saying, right? And so that was how we started our spec. And then I think by like the turn of the year, like it was January, and we had started to build our group of founding artists, and we were getting this feedback from the artists that, we're not interested because the gas fees are crazy and it's bad for the environment. And I'm sorry, like we really want to participate, but we can't, because we don't believe in doing this because of the impact on the environment. And so that we had to kind of take a step back and say, is there another, what are our alternatives? We started to learn about Polygon, which is an awesome L2 chain that has, almost no gas fees, and they've actually committed to being carbon neutral by the end of the year. And so it was like, and we started talking to collectors, and it turned, and Polygon started to come on OpenSea, and suddenly everything had changed, where this kind of dogma that you cannot launch a collection off of Ethereum had completely changed. And so we were in the middle of building everything, and our developer, as I'd mentioned, our iOS engineer, was sort of going along assuming we were going to build directly on the Ethereum blockchain, and it changed. And he had to sort of course correct. But it was great because we were really happy we're on Polygon. And I think it was great for him, to learn. It's not that different at the end of the day. But yeah, that was a big one. And then the other one that I would say is that by the time we launched right when everything was crashing. And so it was, I feel like we worked pretty quickly, to start from, we're like Web 2 people, we have an iOS developer, to launching an NFT platform within 6 months is not bad, but things that the market had completely crashed, or had started to completely crash by the time we launched. And that was definitely, another big pivot we had to do, but we're really, really excited about how our vision has evolved and what we're building. And in a lot of ways, just speaking to, I know you didn't ask about this, but just speaking to the crash and everything, I really enjoy building during these times, because there's just you have so much more time to be thoughtful and to really build something you believe in, as opposed to building something that the hype is forcing you to, kind of driving you to build. And I think the products that come out of this are 100 times better ultimately.
Ulf, do you realize our audience has been either watching or listening to this episode for 20 minutes?
20 minutes? No, they should probably subscribe.
Yeah, they should subscribe. And if you're watching on YouTube, make sure you comment and turn on notifications. And if you're listening to this podcast, especially if you're on Apple Podcasts, leave us a rating and a review.
We're also on Twitter, Instagram, and even TikTok. So go check out the episode description. You can find all that information below. And we have an update on the NFT, don't we?
That's right. We didn't previously mention this, but this NFT for OG supporter is a one of one. There will only be one of this kind ever minted, and we have a few surprises for the person who purchases it. The link is in the episode description.
And back to the episode.
So Prerna, you've mentioned a couple times mysterious, and we've gotten a little bit into it, but I'm hoping we can take a step back and just for the benefit of our audience who may not be familiar with what mysterious is, do you mind giving a deep dive into the platform?
Yeah. So our long-term vision for Mysterious is actually to rebuild social media on Web3. We want to build the next TikTok on Web3. And we have started as really a music video NFT platform with a group of founding artists that are, they're not mainstream, they're experimental electronic musicians. They're incredibly talented. They're the best of the best in this somewhat niche genre that my husband Parag and I are obsessed with. We love these musicians. We love these artists. And so we really wanted to just start from a community of artists that we ourselves respect and that we wanted to support. And that was kind of how this whole thing started. And the plan initially was when everything was, NFTs were blowing up and I think there was so much hype and everything, and you had to do an NFT drop and you had to sell it out. So our plan was, okay, let's build this awesome music video NFT platform, get these amazing artists together and go do a bunch of drops with them and sell them out. And so we built all of that and we did our first 3 drops. We managed to sell them out. And just like everything was tanking. And so we sort of took a step back and said, what's our long-term vision here? We want to build the next TikTok. We started with some drops. And what does that really have to do with building the next TikTok? And what are we actually wanting to build? And why don't we just go build that? And so we, in a lot of ways, I think this pullback has given us permission to just focus on building the long-term vision. And what that is actually a mobile app. So going back to that point of, is how different is Web3 from Web2? I think we are there. Really, the future, it's not just all on the blockchain. It's in the merger of what's come before us and this new technology. So we're building a mobile app. It's a new kind of social media experience. It's a token gated app, which means that you have to own an NFT to be able to access the app, and the NFTs that you own is what creates the experience within the app. And our belief is that Web2 social media is broken. Web2 social media was amazing when it first came up. It was so powerful. It allowed us to connect with billions of people around the world. It allowed us to express ourselves in ways that weren't possible before. And it was awesome. But now that we are spending the majority of our time socializing online, the Web2 apps are breaking down. And I think that blockchain is fundamentally a social innovation, and the most lasting impact that we will see from blockchain is in improving how we socialize online. And our goal with Mysterious is to be one of the big players in that space and to fix a lot of what's broken in Web2 and help us create more meaningful interactions online.
I love that. Can you break down, though, what does it mean to own an NFT to then get certain access within the platform? Why is that important? And maybe how, at a lower level, how will that work?
Yeah. So I'll maybe to explain that, talk a little bit again about what I think the gaps are in Web 2 and why blockchain is I think coming at just the perfect time to fill those gaps. So as humans, we are wired to interact in person, of course, like that's what we've evolved to do. And we seek out social signals from other people. We crave these social signals from other people. And the signals that we are looking to get are things like smiles and hugs and the sound of a loving voice, the smell of food that someone made for us, music that we make with each other. These are the signals that we are evolved to seek out from each other. Now that we are living the majority of our lives online on Web 2 social media, we're constantly seeking these signals. And what we're getting back in return are likes and loves and retweets and follows and pictures, frozen pictures, selfies of people that supposedly are our friends, but make us feel bad about ourselves and about each other. And I believe that is collectively making our society sick. And the reason why is there's this mismatch between the types of signals we're seeking. We're seeking strong, valuable signals, and what we're getting back is very weak ones. And I think what NFTs, what blockchain in general, and what NFTs in particular allow us to do is they give us an opportunity to basically create stronger signals. I think blockchain is allowing us to add constraints back into how we socialize online and allowing us to say, okay, I'm going to buy this NFT. And by doing that, I'm going to invest in this community of people that care about the same things that I care about. And I'm committing to interacting with fewer people in much more meaningful ways. And that is the opportunity that we see and that we're really excited about. And so the what we are building with Mysterious is basically a token gated app where people basically to support micro communities where people say, I'm going to purchase this NFT or these different NFTs, and those are the communities that I'm going to interact with through this app, Mysterious.
It's super interesting. I mean, little history going back to 2016, how I got into blockchain and whatnot. It was a website. It's a terrible name for the website. The website was called Steam It, and it was trying to be a social media style, kind of think of a hybrid between maybe a Medium and a Reddit. But the reason I was interested was that there was always this big question of what's going to drive mass adoption. And what we've learned recently is, well, NFTs did a pretty good job of that. But prior to that, people really thought social media could be the thing. And so it was this blogging website. You could follow different people. The problem with it, in my opinion, was that it was value-based. So you put out a blog article, and if a lot of people upvoted it, you'd actually get the cryptocurrency Steam. So people were making money off of this site, but it took away kind of the genuine side of what social media could be about and that type of thing. What you're proposing here, what you're describing sounds really interesting because I think it could work. My question for you, maybe to slightly play devil's advocate, is, one of the issues I think exists in social media currently is these algorithms tend to drive us into conversations or seeing posts that kind of reinforce our existing beliefs on things, I guess. And so it almost reinforces and we get, that's our content. Our reality is, certain things are happening where somebody else may disagree with us. And we're like, how does this person disagree? Don't they see what's going on? Well, they're seeing a completely different side of things. Now, for something like music, I think it's pretty innocent and you wouldn't have that issue. But do you see any problem there in a space like crypto where it's already kind of tribalistic with people, how they feel about Bitcoin or Ethereum, that type of thing, having maybe NFT gateways that are only showing them a certain capacity?
So it's a fantastic question. And I actually think what we are proposing in many ways solves this problem. And the reason why is that monoculture, right? I like to think of it as monoculture, this idea that we just see, each of us is just kind of seeing this very specific way of living, this way of believing, and this way of seeing the world. And that's driven by two things. It's driven by the algorithms. But why are the algorithms there? The algorithms are there because of this idea that social media is primarily this thing of one to many. It's that we're connecting a billion people together, and there are no constraints around the communities that have been built in Web 2. And when that happens, there's too much information out there. There's too much stuff, and you have to rely on algorithms to decide what you see. And it's based on these sound bites. We're all speaking in sound bites, and it's these very frozen ideas, these little snippets of ideas. They're not real conversations. We're not having real conversations with anyone. They're not meaningful interactions. They're very surface level. And so we're addicted to these feeds that are driven by these algorithms that are constantly feeding us these very surface level ideas. And that's what puts us in this state where we're not thinking anymore. We're just being fed these headlines and being taught what to believe based on these headlines. What we're proposing is that's not natural. That's not a natural way for us to interact. A natural way for us to interact is with small groups of people that where we have some affinity. And traditionally that affinity is family. It's right, or it's clan, essentially. But one of the cool things about the internet, and this is going back to this idea of like, what can we take from Web 2? What are the cool things about the internet is it can be your chosen family, and it can be an affinity around something other than your genes. It can be something like music, a certain type of music you all love, or a certain kind of bread, that you all want to learn how to bake, or whatever it is, a meditation practice. And you can choose to interact, create this community, small community of people who are all interested in that type of thing. But by putting a constraint and saying we're going to spend more time basically interacting with fewer people, you can start to have meaningful conversations. And so let's say it's a community of experimental electronic music. It's musicians and they're very close fans, people who love that kind of music. And you start having meaningful conversations with them. Maybe some people have different political beliefs in that group. But because you're actually having a conversation, you can take time to understand each other. And it's not just this headline versus this headline and butting heads and saying, I don't want to talk to you anymore.
It's interesting. I love where we're going with this conversation, because Wade and I have had a number of opportunities with recent episodes to speak to people who are in the NFT space, but tying it to music. And I think one of the things that's a common thread throughout some of those conversations is what Web3 is providing, some of what you're saying you're trying to accomplish with Mysterious right now, in that it brings, in the world of music and Web3, it can provide the opportunity to reconnect fans with musicians and artists at a level that we haven't really had before. Or maybe it's not that we didn't have that access, but we didn't even think to seek it out because it's just not the way the world was at the time. But now you can buy NFTs that are produced and sold directly by the artist. And by getting those NFTs, oftentimes that now provides you that intimate access that you didn't have before. So going back to the points you're making right now, I mean, you've been talking about Mysterious sort of providing that more intimate level of social communication through communities. And that could be with family or friends, or in this case, perhaps musicians. Now, when we were talking with our guests, the way that's happening today is still kind of just with Web 2 technology. For example, they buy the NFT and that's how the Web 3 connection takes place. But then they ultimately still just go and communicate with these artists through Discord or through Telegram or through whatever existing apps are out there today for communication. It sounds like Mysterious is going to try and pull all of this together. Am I understanding that right? Or would you explain it a little differently?
That's exactly right. That is exactly right. And I think that's been our journey over the past year, is buying NFTs and buying into these communities, and then going to Discord or Telegram and getting into the discussions and just seeing this behavior emerge. That's been so interesting to see, but it's been so crazy because it's so scattered. And we started to feel that there was an opportunity to build an app that is meant just for this purpose. And that, obviously you can integrate everything with Collabland and all of these things and the bots on Discord. There are a lot of tools to do it, but it just felt messy. And it felt that it wasn't, in a lot of ways, it was, these communities would start small, and they would be meaningful in the beginning, and then they would just get too big and too crazy, and you just start to feel like you're back in Web 2 again. And so, yes, that's exactly right. We feel that there is a reason to build something from scratch that is really focused on this behavior that we're starting to see emerge in Web 3.
It's an impressive list of investors that are on the Mysterious website. You've got Ashton Kutcher, LeBron James, Mariah Carey, many others. So were these people who were previous investors on some of your other projects, or is this specific to Mysterious?
Yeah. No, they have. They supported us with Hooked, and so they've been our investors for a really long time, and we've just been really fortunate to be able to build relationships with some amazing people throughout our career that have sort of seen how we do things and support us as we venture out into these kind of crazy new lands.
Yeah, no doubt. When you talked about the founding artists, you mentioned that they're very creative. They're some of the best of the best. But how did you go about actually, finding and curating that group of artists? Obviously, a lot of it, you had to get them. They had to want to get involved as well. And you talked a bit about that. But how did you find these great artists to come together?
Yeah. We found them really through our own playlists, basically. They're all musicians that we listen to ourselves and just love and really respect. It was also very important for us to put together a list of artists that are diverse in terms of course, in terms of race and gender, but also in terms of voice. We felt like, we are focused on this relatively niche genre of experimental electronic music, but it's actually very vast, and the types of sounds that you hear can be so different. And so we wanted to just create something that was that felt like it represented many different styles and many different perspectives. But they were all artists that we ourselves love to listen to, and I just started cold emailing them. Basically, I just went on Twitter and Instagram, and for some of them, I just literally, if they had their DMs open, I just DM'd them on Twitter, and for others, they had managers, and so I emailed the managers, and some percentage of them got back to me, and a couple said yes right away, and then that sort of just, they all know each other, and so I think once you start to get the validation of a couple of their peers, I think many of them, everyone had heard of NFTs, and many of them were interested, but there was some trepidation to get involved. And then there was kind of the bad rap, about the environment and stuff like that. So it was just a process of educating them on where we see the space going, what the opportunity is. And also it's going back to the point on diversity and, this idea that there's just kind of like this image of the crypto bro that is just destroying the planet. That was the image in a lot of their minds. And in a lot of ways, I think because I'm different, they really responded to that, because it was like, yeah, it is crypto bros right now, but we can't let them have everything. We have to come out, and the only way to change it is to go forward and to build in this space and say, we're going to have a voice in this space too. And that really resonated with them, which was so cool.
I read, I think, that you belong to the Friends with Benefits DAO. Is that true? Yes. Yeah. So I'm really curious about that in terms of, I guess, two parts to this. The first being did that experience kind of influence any of this idea of, the token gated, that piece of it? And just what has your experience been being with that DAO? Has it been, I guess, a positive one? What does it look like?
Yeah. So I actually heard about Friends with Benefits from my sister, who's also my co-founder with Mysterious and with Hooked, and so it's a family affair. It's my husband and my sister and I start companies together, and she got into Friends with Benefits before I did, and she's been very involved in it, and then she got me in, and I've been in it, and it's by the time I got in, it was really quite large already, and Isha, my sister, got in earlier. And so it's been interesting to just see how the value of being part of it has changed, and how their Discord server has changed over that time. And it definitely, seeing that was one of the things that gave us this idea to kind of build Mysterious in this way as a space for communities like Friends with Benefits, in a sense, to communicate, because I feel that it's been awesome being part of Friends with Benefits, but I do think that now it's at a point where it's too large, and it's really hard to feel like it's a community where you belong. Just, speaking very frankly, it's very difficult because it's so large, and because the tools that exist right now make it really difficult to have meaningful interactions with other people. So I love that what it stands for. It really is about culture in Web3. And I think it's an amazing community, and it's been so influential in helping other DAOs also, just sort of showing the path. But I feel that a lot could be better, and in a lot of ways, it's hopefully founders like me who like to build, apps can help support DAOs like Friends with Benefits to keep a lot of that. What was great about it in the beginning, which is people teaching each other and collaborating and co-creating.
On that note about sort of bringing value to each other at an intimate level, we talked a bit about that with Mysterious in terms of where you want to get to, what the long-term vision is. As for the shorter-term vision with where Mysterious is today and how it will evolve in the not-so-distant future, how does the platform help connect artists with fans?
Yeah. So we started with, a few drops of our first artists. We're going to be releasing many more NFTs from these founding artists over the next few months. And we are launching our app in beta in September. And so in the very, very beginning, this app is going to be super small. And this is really different from what we've done in the past with Hooked and with our music apps, where we launched, and with some of the music apps like Songify and Autorap, literally millions of people downloaded them in the first week. So it was the total opposite of what we're trying to do now, which is that we're going to launch this app, and it's going to be these 25 artists that we put together, and the handful of people that will have purchased their NFTs in the beginning. So it's a really, really small group and a really small community, and we are building an app just for them. But I think that that's really key, because what we want to do is iterate on that app and create something real. We want to create this space where they want to come. They want to come and participate, both the fans and also the artists, where the artists feel like they're getting something out of participating in this community. And they're not doing it just because they have to. We've spoken to all of them, and all of them feel, they're on Instagram, they're on Twitter because they have to be. Now, as an artist, you have to have a social media presence, but vast majority of them are tired of it. They don't want to do that. They don't want to have to post constantly on social media. And so our goal for this first phase over the next few months is to just build an app that they actually enjoy participating in, and using that as basically a pilot for this bigger vision.
That's such a good example, because we recently, as Ulf mentioned, we've had a couple music-related interviews. The episode that's coming out 1 week before the date that yours comes out is an artist named Daniel Allen. And he said that very thing. He's like, I got into music because I wanted to make music, but then I hear I got to do 10 TikToks a day. I got to do this. I got to do that. So I think that there's a good chance that will definitely resonate. Prerna, this conversation has been such an interesting one. And, we always kind of have a bit of a plan for some of the questions that we're going to ask, but I really like kind of the turn that it took about talking about social media and the purpose of that. One last question before we get to our final segment, which we ask every guest the same 3 questions. Before that, though, I want to ask, as someone who has been through these cycles that we alluded to earlier, what is your advice for maybe someone who discovered this space through NFTs last year, and maybe they bought some crypto and they're like, what the heck has happened? Everything is down. What is your advice to them to maybe pay attention or continue paying attention over the next couple of years, even if it's difficult to do so?
Yeah, definitely. Like I said, these are the best times to build. They really are. And for me, it was, even though, it was hard in the beginning to watch everything start to crash, and it was hard to launch while everything was crashing. Once you kind of wrap your head around it and you accept it, I'm elated. I'm elated to be building right now. It was there was, in a way, this needed to happen. There was too much noise, and it was so hard as a founder to focus on anything, because there were just too many things like coming at me constantly. And I felt like I had to know everything, and I had to be at all these conferences and talk to all these people, which is great in the beginning, but you can't build anything with that much noise. And so I think, if you're just coming in and this is the first downturn you're going through, or whether it's first crypto winter or first recession, I've been through this, my third as a builder. So, use this, appreciate the moment, because it's a really special time to be able to build with conviction, and really ask yourself, why did I get in this? What is the future I want to see? What is the future I want to build? And focus on that long-term goal, and just, revel in the peace and the quiet that we have right now, because it's the best time to build something of lasting value.
I think that's such good advice to wrap up that section. And Prerna, as I mentioned, every guest, we ask the same 3 questions to. It's a segment that we call You Had Me at Crypto. So Ulf's going to ask you those questions.
All right, Prerna, you ready?
Ready.
All right. The first question, who's your favorite person to follow in the crypto space?
Holly Herndon. She's an artist, a musician, and a machine learning researcher. And she just blows my mind every day.
Interesting.
Awesome.
I haven't heard of her, so I'll have to check her out.
Yeah,
sure,
definitely. Yeah. All right. Second question. What will the price of Bitcoin be 10 years from now?
1 million.
1
Yeah,
million.
there you go. See, here's why we love that answer. That is the most common answer. However, the most common in 2021. In the last 2 months, nobody has said 1 million. Everyone's like lowball, like 100,000, 200,000, because we're in a bear market and everyone's scared. I love your conviction.
Yeah, love it. Yeah. Hasn't affected your judgment. That's good. Yeah. That's good. All right. The third question here. What is the most underrated coin or project in all of crypto? And not mysterious.
Yeah.
No self-shilling.
Yeah. FX Hash. It's actually a project on the Tezos blockchain, and it's generative art on Tezos. And I love it because it's I just think the community that's there, the artists are just really awesome. I don't know how else to say it. I just think it's art that's being created for art's sake. It's not about people just trying to make a quick buck. The collectors, the artists, they're all there because they care and they believe in that art, and they're just continuing to produce really amazing stuff. And I love being on there, and I love collecting. And it's not about what's going to happen to Tezos or anything. It's really just because I want to own that art.
Cool.
Very cool. Well, thank you so much, Prerna. We really enjoyed this conversation. Thanks for joining Alf and I on this episode of Show Me the Crypto.
Thank you for having me. This was awesome. You guys are amazing. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to Show Me the Crypto. Please make sure to subscribe as well as rate and review this podcast.